Edmund Kemper is a Californian serial killer who brutally murdered 10 people in Santa Cruz between 1964 and 1973. His moniker as the Coed Killer came from the fact that his victims were mostly college-age women hitchhikers, though he also killed his grandparents almost a decade earlier. Today we will be displaying 7 horrifying facts about Edmund Kemper, the Coed Killer. Fact 1: his mother locked him in a basement. Ed Kemper's relationship with his mother was explosive. Colonel Kemper would verbally and physically abuse him. Kemper's parents divorced, and his dad lived in Montana, leaving Kemper stuck with his mother. He was jealous of his 2 sisters, who his mother preferred. As he got older, his massive size became an issue for his mother. She began locking him in the basement. Kemper describes sleeping in the dark basement as traumatizing, even hinting that this experience was a significant factor in his later murders. Fact 2: he killed his grandparents out of boredom. When he was 15 years old, Kemper attempted to run away and find his father. After being rejected by his father, and his mother not wanting to take him back in, he lived on his grandparents' farm in the mountains of California. According to Kemper, his grandfather was senile, and his grandmother was supposedly abusive. The lack of stimulation in an isolated environment weighed heavily on Kemper. At a certain point, Kemper couldn't take it anymore. In August 1964, Kemper found a hunting rifle and killed his grandmother in the kitchen. When his grandfather got home, he shot him as well. When asked by the police, he simply said, "I just wanted to see how it felt to shoot Grandma." Fact 3: natural-born killer. Edmund Kemper was a large man coming in at 6 feet 9 and 250 pounds. There are few people who could physically match him. On top of that, he had an IQ of 145, making him very intelligent. These 2 factors combined made him what many investigators called a natural-born killer. This intelligence was also one of the few reasons he could get out of Atascadero State Hospital. His pleasant demeanor and high IQ allowed him to access the assessment devices. By memorizing the responses, he convinced evaluators that he was no longer a threat and secured his release. Fact 4: he dismembered his victims and was a necrophiliac. Kemper's post-mortem rituals were disgusting. His targets tended to remind him of his mother and triggered a deep hatred of women in general. In an interview, he said, "There's a lot that leads into that happening, but that's what happened. They represented not what my mother was, but what she liked, what she coveted, what was important to her, and I was destroying it." After the murder, he would typically take the bodies home, decapitate, and dismember the corpses, sometimes in his bathtub. In Nakoku's case, he decapitated her and rode around with her head in his trunk. He even stopped in for an appointment with a psychiatrist who deemed him mentally fit and ordered the state of California to seal his juvenile record, all with a severed head in his trunk. With the bodies at home, he would have oral sex with the decapitated heads, rape the corpses, and take nude photos of their lifeless bodies. Christian Bale in American Psycho is famous for the line, "One side of me says, I'd like to talk her to her, date her. The other side says I wonder what her head would look like on a stick." In the movie American Psycho, Bale wrongfully attributes the line to Ed Gein, but in reality, it belongs to Ed Kemper. Fact 5: most brutal murder was his own mother. Edmund Kemper is manacled by Santa Cruz Sheriff Deputy Ron Atkinson following the 5th day of his trial, where he is accused of killing 8 women. Kemper's right arm is bandaged following a suicide attempt in his Redwood City cell. Kemper's trial continues. Kemper couldn't contain the hatred for his mother that fueled his murders for much longer. In April 1973, he bludgeoned her with a hammer and slit her throat when she returned from a night of drinking. After decapitating her and having oral sex with her head, he mounted it on the wall and spent hours screaming it while throwing dots. In a symbolic gesture, he removed her vocal cords and ran them through the garbage disposal. Later, he phoned his mother's best friend to come over and strangled her to death as well. Fact 6: a strange execution request. Police picked Kemper up in Colorado and returned him to California to await trial. Before trial, Kemper unsuccessfully attempted suicide twice before his trial began in October 1973. Within 3 weeks, the jury found him guilty of 8 murders and sentenced him to 56 years to life in prison. Kemper, on the other hand, wanted the state to execute him for his crimes. Specifically, he requested that they torture him to death. Much like Manson, Kemper escaped the death penalty due to the Supreme Court temporarily outlawing capital punishment. Fact 7. He's alive and well. Kemper went up for parole in 2007, 2012, and 2017. In 2017, he argued against release, saying that a convicted serial killer shouldn't be allowed back into society. In 2012, he waived his right even to have a hearing. According to his lawyer, he is happy with his life in prison. If we missed anything, let us know. If you are interested in making videos just like these, check the links in the description.